Welcome back, everybody. My name's Laura Scott, and I'm the Sydney office lead and partner here at ADAPTOVATE. We're going to have a great conversation today about the intersection between brand, neuroscience, and leadership. And I'm joined by Rochelle Tognetti, who is the first female CMO of Deloitte Australia, a trailblazer in marketing, and currently studying your master's in neuroscience. She's come out of what she's called and branded her yes year, and now coming out at the other end of it and started a Australian Centre for AI in Marketing, helping to bridge the gap for marketers with AI. So welcome, Rosh. It's really great to have you here, and I'm really privileged to have this conversation.
Oh, happy to be here, Laura.
So we are going to cover off 4 key areas today, and those areas are how neuroscience is shaping the way we approach life, work, and decision making. What it means to be the scientist of your own brain, how reflections on AI and your future, so the future of marketing, and the role of intentional intelligence. So first, I'd like you to just talk to us about your journey and how you got here today.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be a fun chat. Radio, my journey. So life started out as a digital marketer way back, but when in the back end of the 90s as the internet was coming about and disrupting so many aspects of industry. So I started out with travel.com.au.
Okay.
At the time where it was radical that you might be able to book your travel online versus in a travel agency. So that's where life started. And then I went down sort of 10, 15 years of a digital marketing career path in Australia, in England. And somewhere along the ways I got tapped to come over to Deloitte and set up their digital marketing function, which at the time I thought, I'm loving business to consumer land. I'm not sure if that's for me, but maybe I'll take on the challenge for a couple of years. 17 years later.
Wow.
Terrific experience and journey. So started off in the digital marketing team, worked in all different aspects of marketing, ultimately culminating in becoming a partner of the business, which was
fantastic.
Incredible opportunity to work in an organization like that as a partner and a marketing partner. So not very traditional for professional services to bring internal services in as partners. But I became the partner as a COO of the marketing department, and then became the Chief Marketing Officer of Deloitte Australia. So,
and how far into your journey was that?
In terms
at Deloitte?
So that was around 5 years ago.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But I just had this voice. You know that voice. You might have one now. That voice on my shoulder that was going, this is incredible. Love the role, love my team, love the organization. But was deeply fascinated with neuroscience. Just kept coming back, reoccurring theme. So I took last year, my yes year. I'm a marketer. Of course it's branded. Yes year. Took last year as a sabbatical to go back and study a master's in neuroscience. And the yes year came from, I thought if I'm taking a year out from my career, I'm going to say yes to all of those things. You know, when you're just so busy and you got this list of things you'd love to do building up. I call them my luminosity goals. Just things that don't necessarily have a purpose. They just light me up. So last year was my yes year, where I went back to study my master's in neuroscience and business, but then I did all of these things on my yes list.
And so starting with neuroscience, because I want to get to the rest of your list, why neuroscience?
I think by the very nature of being a marketer, you're deeply fascinated in human behavior and what makes us tick.
Right.
And I suppose I wasn't really aware of it. I wouldn't have put the label of neuroscience on that until about 5 years ago, but I was always deeply fascinated. Why are you buying this product? What made you love that ad? What moved inside of you from a customer or client perspective, and then also internally? Like, what's the difference between team members that are driven, as self-motivated, those ones that succeed? So I think I've always had a really natural interest in human behavior.
Great.
I love the mind. I always have, but I took that down. I am a meditation teacher. 10 years ago, I became a meditation teacher and learned a lot about the power of the mind through meditation.
Mm-hmm.
But then neuroscience for me just kept rearing up. I just kept finding I was so interested in reading about it. What happened? Pivotal moment, COVID.
Okay.
So interested in neuroscience, but hey, I'm a CMO, I've got a large team. I don't have time to go back and learn to be a neuroscientist. COVID comes along. I've had a really great suite of resilience tools as a leader. I'd learned those and harnessed those over the years, but we got to COVID and I was finding, oh my gosh, all of these things that normally help me recoup, that normally help me perform under pressure, they weren't touching the edge. And it was then where I thought, do you know what? I might go back and study some neuroscience. And I went off and did an advanced diploma in the neuroscience of leadership.
Okay.
And that just gave me so many different tools to help build my resilience through COVID. It helped me understand through a cognitive and scientific level what was going on in my brain.
Right.
Why am I feeling so exhausted through this period? And I realized my routine's broken.
Right.
Actually, every day we were all living with this fear of, are we going to survive?
Is it ever going to end?
Is it ever going to end? You know, those 11 o'clock calls every day is triggering this threat response every day. And so much of my brain power was being taken up with every day trying to put some structure in the day. I didn't know whether my children were going to be online learning or offline. My team members, I didn't know if we were in the office or out of the office. So the learnings I took from the neuroscience as a leader, and for what is more classically in a clinical environment as a leader, just enhanced my ability to lead.
Brilliant.
And hence I just thought, I've got to do something with this. We've got to bring principles of neuroscience into business, whether that's for leaders, whether that's unpacking neurodiversity. You know, the problems we're trying to solve for, and you must have it all the time with your clients, they're complex.
Absolutely.
And we need different types of brains looking at that. But the problem is we're often not set up as organizations to handle different types of brains.
And given the space to be able to do so as well.
Given the space to be able to do so, to be able to think about problems differently. And then, of course, artificial intelligence. So how do we use our cognitive intelligence in a world of artificial intelligence? What other intelligences do we need to build into that? You've got obviously emotional intelligence, but you touched on it before, attentional intelligence. How do we also, as leaders, harness our ability to focus?
So absolutely fantastic. So you're doing your master's in neuroscience. I'd love to know more about what else you're doing. So what's the marketing academy you've set up?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you more. So last year was the yes year. That was saying yes to all of those great things. This year is a bit about maybe we'll say heck no year. I've got clearer this year on the things that really drive my passion and where I want to focus in. So the Masters of Neuroscience and Business. I've still got one semester left.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. Almost there. If I don't see APA style referencing ever again in my life, it'll be too soon.
Fantastic.
So I've got that. I'm also teaching at Sydney University, which is something I just love. It's that reciprocity. You know, it's
magic.
It's being able to bring to the students stuff that I wish I had when I was at university. That person that says, here's the theory and here's how it really plays out in life. So that brings me a lot of joy. I teach.
So what are you teaching there?
Yeah, marketing, leadership, and the future of business.
Okay. And what kind of students are you working with? Like what's their background and why are they there? Why do they want to be there?
Really diverse backgrounds.
Okay.
Really diverse backgrounds and lots of international students again, which I love.
Fantastic.
But one thing they're all incredibly smart, but they're also incredibly passionate. And I love it. They're passionate. They're curious. They want to make the world a better place.
That's awesome. Which
is such a brilliant energy to teach. They challenge. I like that too. They challenge the theories. They challenge the thinking.
Brilliant. But
they do it in a way that they're always seeking for. How do we do things better? Although interestingly, and we can talk about this a little bit later, there's a concern, and I get it consistently, of people saying, "But Rosh, what's the world going to look like when we finish university? Is there going to be roles for us? What is happening with AI? Are we still going to be relevant? So we can talk about that. But studying myself, teaching, and then two areas that are really exciting. So we set up a consulting business called Air Consulting with 3 other brilliant founders. Some wonderful human beings, but also incredibly talented marketers. So Louise Cummins, ex-CMO of World Vision, H&R Block, and only recently announced top 25 CMO in Australia.
Fantastic.
Gem, Jodie Sangster, ex-CMO, IBM Watson, ex-CEO, ADMA, the Australian Direct Marketing Association, again, another brilliant human, and Douglas Nichols. He was the founder of The Works, which is the agency within Capgemini.
Great.
We all came together at just a magic moment.
Wow.
Brought together in terms of passion for the industry, but also looking to do something a bit different and really lean into AI and how that's shaping marketing leaders, marketing departments, and the marketing we do. So came together to set up the consulting business, but we also just kept having this repeated conversation about what's happening in our industry. Felt like a lot of our marketing leaders and the industry as a whole were being just gripped by AI anxiety.
Right.
Super smart, creative people, just not having either the headspace and the time to think about AI, or not having the skills and the knowledge. And we felt that was creating a bit of a paralysis. And we also felt like marketing was becoming a bit process driven, like we'd lost a bit of our heart.
The special sauce that goes into marketing.
That special sauce, you know, that art, that science, that you can't quite touch it, but that stuff that really just sticks with you. So we looked at each other and went, we got to do something. Why not? So we founded the Australian Centre for AI in Marketing. And really what our mission is there is bringing together marketers from across industry sectors. So we've got very diverse perspectives to make AI training accessible to all.
What a fantastic opportunity for marketers.
I think so. And I think by us doing that, and you know, we've lent on our networks, and wherever we can, we're trying to provide that training for free, because we truly believe if we can put the training, the skills, the knowledge into the hands of the incredible marketers we have in Australia, collectively, we can really shift the dial, improve the value that marketing brings, move marketing up that value chain with AI. Amazing. Versus this mentality of AI taking our roles and AI commodifying what we do.
So what types of training are you offering?
At the moment, we've got a lot of 101 training, so fantastic, and sold out twice now. Incredible. 101 in AI fluency. We're also bringing in some more advanced training, recognizing we actually do have some incredible marketers that are doing brilliant stuff. Right. Incredible organizations that are keen to do more. You know, Pet Barn's a great example. We learned a lot about yesterday of what Nick's doing at Pet Barn. They're at the edge. They're ready for more. So we're also looking to bring training in for organizations that are actually looking to take, and leaders looking to take themselves to the next level. Great. So training's one aspect. The other piece is research. So we're doing a benchmarking study at the moment with 60 CMOs from across Australia, getting an insight into where are we at. Let's get a bit of a benchmark for the industry, so then we can help focus on where do we need to improve. And we're looking to have those conversations about some of the tough issues in the industry. Right. What's the future of marketing? What's the marketing team of the future? What's the role of graduates?
Absolutely.
What's
huge?
Those conversations, they're a bit uncomfortable too, to be honest with you, Laura.
Absolutely. And like, I'm having them with my clients at the moment, and you can see it in the paper. You just read a paper, and companies are fundamentally changing the shape that they are organized now based on potentially the unknown, them not knowing if their job is fine, so people are exiting on their own. It's quite a worry. So if you can give some, access to the market of good data to set these teams up for success, that's fantastic.
Exactly. So we want to inform this conversation with data, but also smarts. So we've got this pioneer group, 20 of Australia's leading
Wow.
CMOs, got some brilliant advisors, diverse advisors like Joel Pearson, who's a professor in neuroscience, but also a neurofuturist. You know, Joel's brain is already out in 30 years from now. What's society going to look like? So we've got these really diverse group of people bringing a perspective, and it is just a perspective, right? The reality is
we've got to start somewhere, though.
We've got to start somewhere. Nothing is absolute. I mean, nothing ever has been absolute, but it feels even now more so. Nothing is absolute. So it's a perspective on what could it look like. And as I say, we'd rather lean in now to understand some of the negative consequences and how do we prepare for that. So it's really exciting. We've had a great response, and I think people are loving that this is by marketers for marketers.
Amazing. And look, the energy that you are bringing, and like we've known each other for a while, the energy that you're bringing, you know, coming into your yes year, moving into neuroscience, it's like the market is so, or should be, and I know they are, grateful to have you in the market, even from you teaching. It's really exciting to see that you're out there from a giving perspective back. It's good on you.
Thank you. I mean, I feel it. My smile is on my dial. Like my smile is there, and it's a lovely feeling when you've got your passion, your purpose, your skills and experience. You know, people talk about that sense of flow and in the zone, and I feel that at the moment. Like I just feel this sense of I'm really in the zone of how do I bring 30 years of marketing experience, 17 at a leading organization like Deloitte, how do I bring the academic lens, and then the neuroscience, how do we bring just a different way of thinking of how we're solving these problems? It feels good.
So good.
And I hope that's going to make a difference.
Well, you're certainly glowing with it. So
thank you.
So let's go to scientist of your own brain. What does that mean?
So Linda Ray, who's the leader of neurocapability, and that was the organization that I did my initial studies through, the cognitive neuroscience. So she really coined this phrase, and it's resonated with me ever since. And it's a mindset. So it's thinking about the way that you behave, the way that you're making decisions through this lens of what's happening in my brain. Less so, and I love that positioning because it's quite disarming. And thinking about what's happening in other people's brains. So that's the positioning statement. And really what that's all about is, without putting yourself under an fMRI or an EEG, without plugging all this electrical stuff into you to develop maps of your brains, what can you do with a bit of neuroscience, with a bit of understanding of what your body's doing? What can you do to get a bit of an insight into what's happening up here? And how do you harness that to be a better, if we're talking in a business sense, a better leader, a better decision maker? How do you do that better with understanding what's going on in your brain?
Okay, and so have you got an example of something that we can go into?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's use me as an example. So really thinking about my brain. I've grown over time to understand what triggers a threat response in me. And that will be different to what triggers a threat response in you. David Rock came up with this acronym, which I really like, and this is a good one for you. And the acronym is SCARE. So the concept is there's 5 social domains that in all of our brains will trigger a threat response. And when I say a threat response, what I'm talking about here is it's that amygdala suddenly fires up and either puts you in that fight, flight, or freeze. And that's what we're seeing is happening a lot when we're talking about the AI anxiety. People's amygdalas are overactive. So understanding what triggers a threat in you, in your brain. And the domains are S is significance, C is certainty, A is autonomy, R is relatedness, and E is equality. So all of us on some level, when we see something happening in those domains that we perceive to be negative, we'll have a level of a threat response, but at varying degrees. And why that's useful, so I realize that equality is one that really fires me up. when I perceive something to be unequal,
Okay.
my brain goes. And I
Right.
feel that. And it took me a while to really understand that. But I know that now. And I often do this. I have to do it quite subtly in a meeting. But
am I still alive?
But I notice my pulse. I notice
Really?
my pulse, and when my pulse picks up. And that's a little indicator to me. I'm going, whoa, hold on. Something's triggering my sympathetic nervous system.
Right.
Something's causing me to breathe faster. And over time I realized that's really when I'm watching or involved in a situation that I feel is unequal.
Right. And so what do you do?
Breathing.
Okay. Your shirt.
My shirt. Breathing.
You are.
And
right.
you know, if there's anything I can leave with you and your listeners is the value of your breath.
Right.
Yes, I've been teaching meditation for a long time, so it's something I've harnessed. But you don't need 20 minutes sitting in the lotus position to be able to use your breath effectively. So what do I do? The psychological sigh. Andrew Huberman's done some great research on this.
Yeah.
So the concept is, so to really, and this is the quickest thing you can do to calm your nervous system, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is essentially your relaxing nervous system. When I notice my heart rate's going, so I've noticed, something's not, it's triggering a threat in me, I'm not perceiving this to be fair, my heart rate will go. The physiological sigh is 2 deep inhales, quick inhales, we'll do it in a sec, and then a long exhale. And so this is, again, the neuroscience and the research is there. It's the quickest way to calm your nervous system. So you do 1 inhale, filling the air sacs, and then another sharp one.
Okay.
Hold it for a sec, and then a slow breathing out. You know, you might have this with your kids. You know, when they're really upset, and then when they're trying to calm themselves down, they go,
yeah, true.
That is the breath. That's the breath that you just did. Now, you don't have to do that in an exaggerated way. It's slightly unusual if you're in a meeting going, what's my heart rate doing? Then you can do that in a really subtle way, just really quietly. Or if you've got a monitor on, you can notice when your heart rate's changing.
Right.
I notice when my breathing's changing. I notice if my shoulders are going up.
I definitely do my shoulders.
Yeah. And I'm breathing shallow because something's making me nervous, something's making me anxious. And then you can do that breathing. And again, if you're actually doing the breathing properly, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be breathing, you say into your belly. You obviously don't breathe into your belly, but imagine you're breathing deep down past your diaphragm into your belly.
Great.
Just do that.
And you can do that in a meeting very subtly.
Nice. Just to calm. So there's an example for you. Becoming a scientist of my own mind, understanding, so that, you know, that probably may not trigger it in you. I mean, now we're talking about it. If we think about those domains, significance, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and equality, what do you think would trigger a threat response in you?
Maybe relatedness, but I'd love to know more about the framework. Definitely. So I'm going to go back
and think about that. Take that moment to reflect on the end of the day, maybe when you're getting the bus home, and go, what happened today? Where was those moments where I felt, you might use terminology like I was fired up or, you know, even peed off. What was in that moment? What maybe of those domains can you identify which one was triggered? And then how that manifested in your body? Like, what were the physical symptoms you had? And then maybe think about, when that happens next time, what could you try to try and calm your brain, get you out of that fight or flight, and then back into the rested state? So then again, because when you're in that fight or flight, your decision making is clouded, your perception is clouded. So if you can get yourself, if you know when that's happened, you can get out of that, then you can make smarter decisions. You can think more clearly. Yeah,
amazing, great. So for the listeners, go and look at the SCARE framework, practice some breathing, and come back to us and let us know how you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew Huberman has a few guidances on the physiological side.
Great.
So if you look up Andrew Huberman, you'll be able to see some information on how to do that well.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to switch gear.
Go.
We're going to go into your perspective on AI and marketing. So you can start with your perspective on AI, but then love to know more about from a marketing sense.
Okay, so I'm an optimist.
Mm-hmm.
AI is an incredibly exciting opportunity for marketing leaders, for marketing team, for the marketing we do. It should be embraced.
Great.
But it should be embraced carefully. We're going to absolutely make sure we've got the guardrails in place.
Fantastic.
As a marketer, make sure that we're bringing every aspect of our business on this journey. We can't do this alone. But I think it just represents so much opportunity. So I'm certainly in the camp of this has the opportunity to change the way we do things for the better.
Absolutely. And test it. And you might fail, but cool, you've learned something. So let's try again.
Exactly. It's those fundamentals of you getting into that growth mindset. And I'm still learning this myself, to be honest. I am so wired for planning everything out to make sure it is an absolute success. And AI is a different way of approaching things. If you're going to have an AI-centered culture, you're going to be open to, I don't quite know the outcome. This may not be successful. Of course, again, as I said before, you've got to have the right guardrails in place that you're not introducing risk into your business, into your brand.
And so what might be some of those guardrails?
A couple of things that we should be thinking about is making sure you have policies on AI usage.
Okay.
101. Are we all clear on what is expected and accepted within our organization around how we're using AI?
Okay.
Number 2, I think, is having a governance group together. A diverse group from across the business that is looking at your AI usage through different lenses.
Right.
So your guardian personality, maybe it's your chief risk or your legal officer that is looking at it from a risk perspective.
Okay.
Some AI evangelists, those people that are curious and want to push the dial. So a diverse group of people from across the business, and maybe if you've got a large marketing team, maybe you can have a diverse group of people within your marketing team that is your governance team, that is actually stopping and pausing and going, okay, what is the right way that we can approach AI that allows us to still grow, test and learn, but we do this in a safe way. And then I think as marketers, it's also being prepared for if something does go wrong. Internally, how do you manage that? What does that look like in your performance framework? Is failure a negative performance indicator, or is that a growth performance indicator?
Hopefully.
And then it's looking externally in the event. And I think we should prepare for the event that something does go wrong.
So I'm seeing a framework in a few of the businesses that we work with, but not many, like not enough. Probably not the smaller ones because they don't have maybe the capability yet.
Yeah, agree.
Are you seeing it in many businesses? Yeah,
no, similar. It's patchy.
Okay.
And again, it seems to be the larger organizations that have either the larger groups that have AI capabilities that are right at the edge, are understanding the importance of having these guardrails in place, and then patchy underneath that, to be honest. And I think that's actually one of the foundations. I think when you get that in place, the board are feeling more comfortable, exec are feeling more comfortable, and you as a CMO are feeling more comfortable because you've got that wrapped around you. You've got your emergency plan if something happens in the market negatively, how you're going to respond quickly. You've got your plan as in when your team are experimenting and inevitably they make a mistake, how are you going to respond to that? So I think when we get some of those guardrails in place, that'll also help people feel more confident about that test and learn and experimenting culture.
And it's a great addition to training because I think from a knowledge perspective, you can go and learn it, but if you don't have this framework set up to help shape where you should go as a business, or to help you as a leader feel safer for your team to use it and for you to push your team to use it as well.
Correct.
Because I think a lot of leaders we're seeing, they're like, oh, it's scary, I can't do it. My team, I know companies and they've said, no, we're not using it, which is wild. And then other companies that absolutely are, but leaders aren't feeling comfortable. So you put a framework in to support for then training and capability to be built, which is exciting, hopefully, for leaders.
Correct. I think you've got to have you got to have lots of the don'ts in place, sure, but your framework is not just about the don'ts. It's about do this responsibly, ethically, in a safe way. You know, we're thinking about this a lot in academic land as well. That's another really interesting space that I'm seeing disrupted with AI. And even in the year and a bit that I've been with Sydney University, from, you know, our original thinking on AI as in that this is an academic integrity issue, through to now going, well, hold on, how do we reframe assessments? We know all the students are using it. Rather than punish them for using it, how do we use AI, or how do we frame assessments in a way that you can take your human intelligence with some artificial intelligence and rethink the solutions? You know, how do you get to the 1 + 1 = 6 state? Like, how do you do things differently and smartly?
Especially because once they are, you know, done with their academic career or learning, we're going to ask them to be, you know, using it in business. So why wouldn't we integrate it into learning of today? So it's fantastic that it is being used and able to be used. It's otherwise limiting these young, you know, geniuses who are going to be using it, but limiting them from the start of their, you know, early learning career.
Totally. And Sydney Uni gets that, which is great. And I think, and it also mitigates their fear. That question I said up front, of people going, if I spend 3 years in this university, am I going to be completely redundant at the end of it, versus my friends that are out there at the cutting edge, and they're starting as a graduate now, and in 3 years' time they're going to be more senior than a graduate. How am I going to be relevant? And I think when we can integrate AI into the framework at universities and bring our thinking back to the cutting edge, to your point, they come out the other end and they are industry ready. They're ready to make an impact, and they've actually elevated themselves beyond those entry level roles. They can come in at a new and improved level.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying they didn't innovate in COVID for whatever reason. It wasn't, they just needed to, you know, get on with business and survive through COVID. And now from a product perspective, from a product roadmap perspective, they don't have a solid product roadmap. And they're now having to build capability from an AI perspective to actually leapfrog 3 years ahead, exactly because they've lost it. So for them to build that capability quickly, they need the innovators of the future that are coming out of unis and are these genius minds to help them grow tenfold and get these companies moving faster and harder and you know, taking them into the future. So it's great to see that it's in universities. It's still
work in progress, let's be clear.
Totally.
But it's getting there. It's going in the right direction. I think there's a good approach to that, and again, leaning into that uncomfortable, because again, you know, obviously academics are facing a similar challenge. Am I going to become redundant? So when you think about AI and what we're learning in the market, you might be the same. You can't take that human response out of it. It's we're trying to implement something that we are fearful is going to take away our career, our role, our identity. Now that's a really hard change piece for leaders to implement. So getting them into the right mindset is incredibly important.
So Rosh, we spoke about Huberman, and I absolutely listen to his podcasts on the bus, on the way to work a lot. Any other podcasts that you can recommend our listeners to listen to from a neuroscience perspective, marketing perspective? What do you listen to?
I am a diehard fangirl of Andrew Huberman. So I know you listen, but if your listeners aren't already listening to Andrew Huberman, he's brilliant. And funnily, someone said to me the other day, but I can't listen to 3 hours. And I was like, oh, is it even 3 hours? I didn't realize. But he's absolutely brilliant for demystifying neuroscience. And bringing and putting some protocols in place. So he's really famous for his protocols: non-sleep, deep rest, getting sunlight at the beginning of the day. So that gives you a bit of education on neuroscience in a not too technical perspective, and then gives you some really practical ideas. So can't recommend Andrew Huberman enough. Okay, weird one, unusual, unexpected. Tara Brach.
Okay.
She's she's brilliant on a meditation level, breathing level. So if you're really into slightly more on a spiritual level, but she's absolutely brilliant. If you're looking for different meditations that you might find approachable to help manage your breath, Scott Galloway's great. He's US based thought leader in marketing, but often he's a protagonist. He has some controversial views. Brilliant. I think they're the ones that I'm mostly listening to.
Great, fantastic. Well, Rosh, this has been a really insightful, exciting conversation. You're glowing off the back of your yes here. We've talked about, AI governance. We've talked about the SCARE framework, breathing to, calm as you feel, a shock to your system, and hoping that, the listeners can practice that. We've talked about your new centre as well, and I really hope that listeners globally can come and interact with you from your website. So thank you. It's been a really brilliant conversation, and we will chat again soon, I hope.
Thanks, Laura. It's been great to be here. Thank you.